Military confrontation involving Iran, Israel, and the United States has exposed the structural fragility of contemporary sustainability systems. Armed conflict in the Middle East is not merely a geopolitical event. It is a multi-dimensional sustainability shock that reverberates through environmental systems, social institutions, and global economic networks. Drawing on recent reporting regarding Middle Eastern airspace disruptions, foundational sustainability frameworks articulated in the World Commission on Environment and Development's Our Common Future, and Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, I present the argument that modern warfare functions as a systemic regressor of sustainable development. The environmental consequences include increased carbon emissions, ecological contamination, and delays in energy transition. Social consequences include displacement, public health vulnerability, and institutional erosion. Economic consequences extend to global supply chains, energy markets, aviation networks, insurance systems, and sovereign risk. The analysis demonstrates that sustainability and security are structurally interdependent. Protracted conflict undermines the intergenerational equity that is central to sustainable development and destabilizes regional and global resilience. The World Commission on Environment and Development defines sustainable development as that which meets the present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Embedded in this definition is an assumption of institutional continuity, environmental integrity, and economic predictability. Armed conflict destabilizes all three pillars simultaneously. The current escalation involving Iran, Israel, and the United States has transformed the Middle East into a theater of both kinetic military confrontation and systemic infrastructural disruption. One of the most visible manifestations of disruption has been the closure of large portions of Middle Eastern airspace. Street describes the resulting aviation void as, quote, a hole in the sky, unquote, where one of the world's densest long-haul corridors linking Europe, Asia, and Africa has been abruptly interrupted. This metaphor captures more than a temporary aviation inconvenience. It represents a rupture in global interdependence. For decades, Europe-Asia air traffic has transited through Middle Eastern hubs such as Dubai, Doha, and Abu Dhabi. When that corridor closes, aircraft must reroute northward or southward, adding flight time, increasing fuel burn, and generating cascading operational strain. Such disruptions reveal the degree to which modern economic systems rely on geopolitical stability. More importantly, they illuminate how conflict produces environmental, social, and economic consequences that extend far beyond combat zones. This article argues that escalating Middle Eastern conflict constitutes a systemic sustainability regression. Drawing on Carson's ecological warnings and the integrative sustainability framework of the Brundtland Commission of 1987, it examines the environmental, social, and economic implications of war for the principal actors, neighboring states, and global systems. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring of 1962 demonstrated that technological systems, when severed from ecological responsibility, produce cascading unintended consequences. Modern warfare exemplifies this dynamic. Beyond immediate battlefield destruction, conflict amplifies fossil fuel consumption, contaminates ecosystems, and undermines climate mitigation efforts. The closure of the Middle Eastern airspace has forced airlines to reroute flights between Europe and Asia, often adding hours to flight times. Historical precedence illustrates the magnitude of such changes. Following the Russia-Ukraine war, Japan Airlines' Tokyo-London service added approximately 2.4 hours and burned roughly 5,600 additional gallons of fuel per flight, an increase of approximately 20%. Comparable rerouting patterns now affect Middle Eastern corridor. Aviation accounts for approximately 2 to 3% of global carbon dioxide emissions. Sustained rerouting translates into measurable increases in CO2 output. Long-haul aircraft must carry additional contingency fuel and extend crew rotations, and in some cases, making refueling stops, all of which increase emissions. These developments undermine decarbonization commitments within the aviation sector, which has been under pressure to transition towards sustainable aviation fuel and fleet modernization. Conflict therefore acts as an emissions multiplier. Even if hostilities are geographically contained, their systemic effects increase global carbon intensity. The Brundtland framework emphasizes coordinated international action to mitigate environmental degradation. Prolonged geopolitical instability impedes precisely that coordination. Energy markets are acutely sensitive to Middle Eastern instability. Reporting from Reuters and the New York Times has documented oil price fluctuations in response to escalating tensions, particularly when Iran, a significant regional producer, is directly involved. Oil price spikes generate complex sustainability consequences. On one hand, higher prices incentivize renewable investment. On the other, they prompt governments to expand domestic fossil production to ensure energy security. Short-term energy stabilization policies may delay regulatory enforcement, reintroduce fossil subsidies, or expand hydrocarbon extraction. Such measures risk reinforcing fossil lock-in at a moment when global climate targets demand rapid decarbonization. The Brundtland Commission warned that energy strategy must align with long-term environmental stewardship. Conflict produces reactive energy governance rather than strategic transition. This is the end of part 1.